This is Distant Replay, the podcast that goes back in time to relive all the greatest events that we witnessed in sports. From upsets, to championships, to cultural moments, we discuss it all. Coming up on today's episode.
This to stay alive in sudden death.
And in one of the most remarkable performances of his career, Tiger Woods perseveres through Torrey Pines and wins a third U.S. Open championship.
We're taking you back to June 16th, 2008. That is the day that Tiger squared off against Rocco Mediate in the U.S. Open. 18 holes, playoff golf, one of the great rounds, one of the great tournaments, maybe one of Tiger's greatest major victories, and one of the last ones, too. But we're focused on this one because, A, it's such a great event, one of the classic major championships, but also it's at Torrey Pines, which is the site of the 2021 U.S. Open, which is right now, guys are getting prepared to play when we're recording this. We will tee off later this week for the 2021 edition. Welcome into Distant Replay. I'm Ben George. He is Mike Noto. So, Mike, I threw golf out at you, and I think, have we done golf? We've done one golf event, right, so far? Or have we done any?
No, we did. We did the recap of the Tiger Woods, HBO Tiger Woods documentary.
Right, but no actual event.
No actual event. This is our first one. And I just want to thank you in advance for choosing a Tiger Woods-related event because, these are the ones as a casual golf fan that I'm really dialed into. So I'm the type of golf fan, I'll watch majors and especially final rounds of majors if they're close. That's the kind of golf fan I am. I make no representations otherwise. But Tiger Woods, we've been through it a million times. When we went through that documentary, he kind of transcended sports. So it was the kind of thing where during this era, we're at the tail end of, Tiger Woods is on TV and you're watching it. Not to mention the fact when he's in a playoff to win a major. Yeah,
no question. And I looked at the final round. I went back and forth between the final round and the playoff. And we settled on the playoff, one, because it's probably a little bit shorter, right? I mean, you're committing 4 hours to watching a round of golf. So just keep that in mind as we go through the show. This podcast won't be 4 hours long or anywhere close to it, but that's what we committed to do this episode. But I thought about doing the final round, and I think one of the iconic Tiger moments of his entire career happened in the final round when he made that final putt on 18 for birdie to tie Rocco Mediate to get into the playoff. But the actual playoff itself, and I think we were both in this boat, Mike, because we both watched it, obviously, and I'm much more of a golf fan, so I know I was locked into it, and you said you were too. But I had forgotten just how close, and then, again, how Rocco essentially almost had Tiger beat one more time.
Yeah, this is where, so when we were trying to decide which round to do, I left it up to Ben, because like Ben said, he's more dialed in on the golf, right? And when you picked the playoff, first thing that came to my mind is exactly what you just said. I'm like, man, was that playoff close? I can't remember. And as we started watching it, I'm like, man, I can't believe how many chances Mediate had to win this, which will probably be one of if not the biggest golf story of the last, certainly of that decade, if not ever. But yeah, you picked the right one because this was a lot more memorable than I remember. And yeah, the 4 hours was crazy when I first saw it. But something I was introduced to that Ben helped me with is that you can actually watch YouTube videos on a faster speed. So that helped me with this one. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast too on YouTube, which we have a bunch of people subscribed over there, use that. It's under settings. You can do the playback speed much quicker. So save you a little bit of time. Also, you can find us, by the way, on every podcasting platform. So if you haven't followed us or subscribed, please do so. Or on Twitter and Instagram as well. Plus, Mike's throwing up a bunch of polls on YouTube. We'd love to hear your feedback on that as we go through. And I want to, starting on this game or this event, Mike, I think you got to start with kind of where we are in Tiger's career, and then some kind of setup on Tiger versus Rocco. So first with his career, he's dealing with this knee injury, and we got pretty good information on that on the documentary that we did before on him, and he's essentially playing without an ACL. He, even during this, he had surgery a little bit before this, and the biggest thing was he had a stress fracture in his leg that he was playing on, and he didn't really even lead on to anybody until after the fact. Like, nobody really was aware of it at all, and it's pretty wild because you see, and we didn't see it really in this event, which I thought was pretty surprising that we didn't see him in a lot of pain. It didn't seem like, I'm sure he was. But he actually, the rounds before, you could see it a lot more. He was grimacing quite a bit more in those previous rounds.
Yeah, I only saw one grimace, if we're doing a grimace counter during this round. I only saw one grimace. Look, during this round, they didn't make a super big deal about his knee because I don't think it was like a major issue in this round. But I remember it being a major deal in the tournament. Yeah. And post-tournament, I remember it like kind of taking on a life of its own. Again, like it outlined in the documentary that we recapped on him. But yeah, the knee injury was definitely an issue.
2 days after the playoff, he revealed the news. Then he had surgery on his ACL, needed time to rehab that and the stress fracture, and didn't play the rest of the year because of it. So basically, he went into this against doctor's orders, saying, "Hey, we don't suggest you play on this. You can only make it worse." And he went out there, won anyway. And I think he even had a good quote on the documentary they featured, like when they talked to Steve Williams, his caddy, that he was like, "I'm going to win this damn thing." Like, essentially, like, I'm going out there and winning. Everybody's telling me no. I'm going to go out there and I'm making my mind up and I'm going to do this. And he did, which is crazy. But this is probably, I mean, you could even look back in retrospect, Mike, and maybe even say this is the peak moment for Tiger, because this decade, the 2000s, the first decade of this century, was all Tiger. I mean, he dominated throughout. He was winning all kinds of majors, even so much so that he won. I mean, you go back from 2005 to 2007, he won 5 heading into 2008, and he had just finished second at the Masters. So he's at the top of his game. Everybody has him as the favorite, and he goes into this tournament against Rocco Mediate, who I love your description of Rocco when you see this guy, because he looks, and I'll let you give your description, but to me, I always thought it was funny because he had this hat on, and he had his pins from his other U.S. Opens. Like, he looked like a guy you would see in the gallery that goes to U.S. Opens and like collects the pins each time he goes, and he wears the same hat every year.
Every Italian guy has an uncle or their father looks like Rocco Mediate. That's just the look he has. And I was telling Ben before we started recording that, Tiger had his vintage red on, even though it wasn't Sunday, it was a playoff. And Mediate had on like a red shirt under a like black like sweater vest type thing. Yeah. And I was telling Ben, if it wasn't for the fact that these two were built totally different, Tiger Woods and Adonis, Rocco Mediate like my Italian uncle, you would have been difficult telling them apart. You know what I mean? But there was no issues there because they just like, there's a difference in age, difference in how they're built. You know what I mean? So, but I thought that was a pretty funny factor. But yeah, that adds to Rocco Mediate's likability, I think, though. This is a guy who everyone fell in love with during this little run he had here in the 2008 U.S. Open. He came into this 45 years old and ranked 158th in the world. Yeah,
and nobody expected him to compete for this. Again, I mean, just give us some context. He would have been the oldest U.S. Open winner of all time. We just had Phil Mickelson win the PGA, and that was such a huge story. This would have been up there, a bigger story because of the unlikelihood of the player that it was, plus the age combined. To do that, again, when Tiger's at his peak, would have been remarkable. And Rocco came in with just 5 PGA Tour wins. Wins like the Kmart Greater Greensboro Open in 1993, Mike.
Kmart, man. Remember Kmart?
And the Buick Open in 2000. I mean, like the Kmart Greater Greensboro Open sounds like something that was on Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, right? Exactly. It sounds like Kmart wanted product placement or company placement, and they bought it. They bought it to be in Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, and when he played this tournament, he'd played a number of majors, Rocco. I mean, Rocco had a pretty solid PGA Tour career. But before this tournament, he only had 3 top 10s in majors ever. And he had played in probably 25 or so, maybe 30 majors at that point, and had only had 3 top 10s. So, yeah, the expectations are pretty low for Rocco in this tournament. The other kind of pre-match, I think, is Torrey Pines. So Torrey Pines, Mike, I'm sure if you never seen this course, obviously when you see the shots of it, it sticks out to you because it's on the ocean, just north of San Diego. Beautiful venue. They play there every year as part of the regular tour rotation, so everybody's pretty familiar with the course. I didn't realize that this is the only major that Torrey Pines has ever hosted until 2021. I thought it was kind of part of that U.S. Open rotation, like every 15, 20 years. I thought at least it probably had held a major at some point, but this was the only one it ever held.
That's surprising to me because, from the outside looking in as a casual golf fan, this just seems like the perfect setting. You know, you're right on the water. You're north of San Diego. Probably odds are the weather's not going to be an issue when you're there. Yeah, that's surprising to me that this was the first major held there, you said?
First major and only major until this year.
Now, let me ask you something, Ben. The regular tour event that's at Torrey Pines, do the big players line up to play in it because of the venue?
Yeah, they usually has a really good field. It's earlier in the year. It's part of the California rotation. They play a bunch of events there earlier in the year when the weather's still nice and the rest of the country isn't as nice. But yeah, this always has a pretty good field, and you always see typically a really good player wins this event.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense because this is absolutely some of the views were breathtaking. I know you're used to it because you probably watch events there all the time.
Yeah.
But one other thing, Ben, I wanted to bring up about the pre-match before we get into it is I thought it was unique, and I hadn't remembered this, that Mediate and Tiger Woods had like a personal friendship type of relationship.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting about that was I think we saw for this time period, remember, we're still in like assassin Tiger Woods competitive mode type environment on the PGA Tour. And I thought you saw some light moments from Tiger in this round that you wouldn't have gotten if he wasn't playing Mediate. And I thought that was pretty interesting to watch as the round developed.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to any of the Rocco interviews, and they've had a couple on this broadcast, I mean, he's a very likable guy. He's honest. He's straightforward. You know, he tells you exactly how he's feeling. Doesn't hold anything back. Right? He's definitely not giving you the typical player speak that you're going to hear. Very honest about everything that's going on, and he's very likable. And I think that's part of this that I think Dan Hicks pointed it out. You have Dan Hicks and Johnny Miller on this call. I don't remember the other tournament he referenced, but I think it might have been something a tournament Jack was in before. But these guys are so laser focused, like Jack and Tiger, right? They're just ultimate competitors. A guy like Rocco comes in, and you're playing in this setting where you're playing just together. It's just two of you. That's it. And you're kind of talking. You're kind of relaxed because you know you got a full round together. And Rocco can kind of get to you and get you out of your game. Not even maybe intentionally, just with his demeanor and just having fun and being relaxed. It kind of spills over, and in turn can maybe to bring Tiger out of his game because he maybe lets his guard down a little bit or drops that competitive spirit for 1 second just to kind of have a conversation or joke around or laugh or whatever. And yeah, it can maybe it's like a quiet, sneaky advantage for Rocco.
Yeah, if you can, I mean, just to show you how likable Rocco Mediate was, let's put his interviews aside. He was able to have laughing moments with Tiger Woods during a major championship playoff round.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about Tiger Woods, that's saying something.
It is saying something. So it was a great setting. I got one other nugget, Mike, on Torrey Pines before we talk about the actual 18 holes. And this is going to be a good one. And this is one that I think you're going to be pretty surprised to hear, but I think you're really going to eat this one up because it ties into true crime. In 2003, in the parking lot of Torrey Pines, can you guess who was arrested?
2003.
April 2003 in the parking lot of Torrey Pines.
I don't even have a guess.
Scott Peterson.
Wow. Wow. That is a huge nugget there. And you're right. I am intrigued a lot. I did not know that. And I've obviously taken a deep dive into that game. We focus on the podcast here about sports true crime. But obviously, I'm a true crime fan. I don't want to say fan. That's a weird way to put it. But I'm interested in true crime in general. And wow, I did not realize that.
There you go. Now you look at this course all differently, don't you?
Oh, man. Yeah.
So let's jump into this. Again, this was a Monday final round, playoff round. And to get here, you look back at the way this tournament unfolded. So a couple things I thought were pretty interesting. The first round leader was Justin Hicks and Kevin Streelman. Justin Hicks, I don't think Mike I'd ever heard of. He had a very brief, maybe a couple PGA Tour starts, but he went out and shot 3 under the first day. Tiger shot 1 over, so Tiger was 4 back after the first day. Hicks went on to shoot 80 the next day, so he was pretty much out of the mix. But Rocco was there pretty much the entire week. Tiger climbed up into the top 3 after second round, and then it was Tiger, Lee Westwood, and Rocco were basically the 3 guys that were in the mix the entire weekend. And just to kind of give you, if you forgot how he got here, Tiger went into this final round with I guess he was tied for the lead with Rocco, rather. And he had never lost a major going into the final round with the lead. He had won all 13 previous majors that he had the lead going into the final round. Well, he doubles the first hole and then bogeys the second hole, and he finds himself down 2 strokes to Rocco already. Rocco had a one-stroke lead with 3 holes left, and he pars the last 2 holes, the last hole being a par 5, and if you're familiar with Torrey and Tiger, and you know how that thing finishes, it's a very birdieable hole. Rocco pars it, leaves the door open, and then Woods comes in and makes birdie. Lee Westwood finished just a stroke back as well. He couldn't do anything down the stretch. No surprise for Lee Westwood, but he basically played an even par round, almost a 1-over round, almost the entire day, and just could not get in there. But Woods had hit that remarkable birdie putt just to get into this situation. So again, you kind of set the tone by Rocco had this thing won, and I know we know that by that putt, but just take the putt aside. If Tiger doesn't hit that putt, Rocco could have just made a couple putts down the stretch, a birdie here and there. He would have won it, and it's much kind of like how this final round went, Mike. I mean, Rocco, I was still shocked at how Rocco had this entire field beat, just could not quite get over that last hump.
Yeah, and it was, I thought, I sort of had a different take on it. I thought it was like really, sort of the mental game for Rocco. I thought to come back the next day after having the taste of winning, right there, and the way he played in this round, I thought made the story even better. But you're right. Rocco had his chances to win. It wasn't really what I thought I was going to see in this final round where Tiger took it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rocco had his chances, and like you mentioned in that final round as well, which is also a memorable round, obviously, like Ben just went into detail on. But yeah, it's man, I wonder I don't know if you think Rocco's the kind of guy who this still eats at him, or do you think he's over it?
No, I think he's over it. I think he was truly grateful that he was even in that position and finished where he did. And there's a lot of guys that have these almost stories in the Tiger era, that guys that maybe their whole career is different if Tiger wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
Rocco's one. Bob May's another. I think Bob May's was the playoff that Tiger played in a major before this one that he won. I mean, there's stories like that where Tiger, could have just changed entire careers for people, and this is one of them.
Bob May, yeah. Bob May.
Yeah, Bob May.
You think I know who he is? Bob May is not on my radar.
He's not.
But he is not on my radar.
He's a bit older. So this event, so it's 18 holes. That's how the U.S. Open did their playoff format. It was a Monday round. Started on ESPN and then moved over to NBC a couple hours later. So I think we were both working at ESPN during this, Mike. And I don't remember if I was off this day because there are Monday, Tuesday weekends. I think I was Tuesday, Wednesday probably at the time. But I think I maybe worked that morning and then watched the rest of it somewhere. But I definitely remember this being a pretty big deal at work.
Yeah, the benefit to working at ESPN back in the day was you could actually watch TV while you worked. Yeah. So it worked out perfectly from that standpoint, where I watched every hole of this. So I remember it very vividly. Like you mentioned, the call on NBC, split between NBC and ESPN?
Yep.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, so NBC, I guess they had their morning programming, so ESPN got to air the first couple of hours, and they did it with all the same. And they did have a little tweak in the graphics, but for the most part, it's all kind of the same coverage.
And on the call, we had Dan Hicks and Johnny Miller.
Great call, yeah.
And this is the summer of Dan Hicks, because Dan, and I'm fascinated by this. You could ask Ben. Dan Hicks goes from this event, which is in June, and then, of course, what you're probably most remember Dan Hicks for is Dan Hicks then goes to Beijing in August and is the main play-by-play announcer on Michael Phelps' historic swimming run there in the Beijing Olympics. So this is Dan Hicks in your living room if you're a sports fan all summer.
Yeah, Hicks had a great 2008. There's no question about it. And he did
Summer
a good
of
job.
Dan. Summer
of Dan. And he did a great job on this call. And Johnny Miller obviously has been a fixture, and he's kind of polarizing in his commentary, but he's pretty honest, and he was good here as well. And there's just all-around good coverage and what you'd expect. And one thing I did think about, Mike, and you probably, again, we're going to put this up on our website, districtreplaypodcast.com, so if you do want to watch the entire event, you got all 4 hours, you can go eat it up just like we did. But this broadcast is 13 years old now. It felt like it looks and feels like it could have been last year.
Yeah, great point. I noticed no difference in the quality of the broadcast because it was from 2008. That's a great point. And I've talked about this before on the podcast, but it's funny watching a golf event when HD was kind of newer, because remember that's how they used to advertise how clear HD TV was. Do you remember that? Like they would show you like a golf match or a golf course, like when you were walking in the store to see if you wanted to buy like a flat screen TV.
Yeah.
That's what would be up on the TV kind of playing. You're like, man, that ball looks really white. That grass looks really green. Let me buy a TV, you know? But those are the vibes you got watching this.
Yeah, it is true. And it was a great broadcast as we're talking about. But it gets started. So it's such a fun thing to watch because you got two guys squaring off. The crowd, pretty good crowd, I guess, considering for a Monday. I don't know how many people wanted to be out there that couldn't because of travel plans and work. But the biggest thing early on in this match is that Tiger, I had forgotten how bad Tiger was early in this tournament. He was 7 over on the first hole alone in this tournament. 7 over. He had 3 doubles and a par to open up each round of this tournament. So if you just take away the first hole, and again, it could have been some stuff with his knee, his leg, who knows. But you take away that first hole, and if he just pars the first hole, which is not, it's not a super difficult hole by any means, Tiger wins this tournament by 7 strokes. So you're talking about one hole that had Tiger's number for whatever reason, that if you take that away, Tiger has another one of his classic finishes where, the field, he laps the field essentially, but he didn't. And you see how excited he was just to kind of get off to a good start. He hits the fairway. And kind of like you talked about, you usually used to seeing Tiger laser focused and not cracking a smile. He raises his arms up and like celebrates the fact that he hit the fairway on the first hole.
Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up, Ben, because I thought this was like a sneaky, like important part of the round for his confidence. You'd think Tiger Woods, ultimate confidence. Why would he need a confidence booster? But you mentioned why, because he struggled on that hole all throughout the tournament. He goes up 1 right away on that first hole. And is it called going up 1, Ben? Am I using the right golf terminology or no?
Yeah, he's up a stroke. It's not match play. So yeah, he's up 1.
He's up 1. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
And at that point, I'm sure you thought the same thing because I'd forgotten how close this was. And a lot of times I don't know if you're the same way, Mike. I don't go back and look at the game ahead of time, like box score or anything. In this case,
I don't either. Exactly.
The scorecard. I want to kind of see what I remember and see how it unfolds again. And I'd forgotten how close it was when I saw this. I was like, and this is kind of what I expected. Rocco, like you mentioned, slept on that not collapse, but having the victory ripped out of his hands the night before, and now he's on the first tee and makes bogey on this first hole. And Tiger's got you 1-on-1 on a Monday for a major. Like you feel like the collapse is coming, but to Rocco's credit, it doesn't. And a couple holes later, he has a 2-shot swing on Tiger and takes a 1-stroke lead. So then you're like, okay, this is actually going to be something.
Yep, you get that. Rocco takes the lead after the 3rd hole when Tiger bogeys and he birdies. On the 4th hole, we get our first Tiger outburst, which is, number 1. All right. Yeah. It's funny how quick the camera pans away from him right as he's going in the middle of the outburst,
Yeah.
Because I think they're afraid of what he actually might say. Because it's raw emotion, Rocco barely misses a putt on the 5th hole to draw it back to even. But then Tiger birdies. This is a good stretch here for Tiger, where he would build a 3-shot lead by the time we're at the 10th hole. He made a huge putt, and, this is the moment, again, like you said, where you're like, all right, Mediate, very good run here, but he might be at the end.
Yeah, Tiger birdied 6 and 7 back-to-back, and then, as you mentioned, they made the turn at even. Tiger's even. Rocco's 2 over. And then the 10th hole, that one to me felt like a game changer. Tiger went in the rough, had to punch out, and then made a long putt off the green for a par. Rocco was in the fairway, had a short approach shot, had a bad chip, and then missed his putt. So it went from it looking like, Rocco was down 2, might get back 1, could even get back 2, depending on how it plays out, to Rocco actually losing a stroke there.
Big
and then all of a sudden it was a 3-stroke difference, like you said. And at that point, I was thinking, you're down 3 to Tiger, going to the back 9 at Torrey. Like, what are your chances of even coming back there? But credit Rocco, man. That guy, he's not flashy, and these are like the 2 opposite swings too, Mike. If you watch Rocco play, and it's like a lot of the older golfers, right? They're not so buttoned up and so mechanically and scientifically driven, right? That like we see today, where everything's got to be exactly perfect. A lot of his feel and whatever works for you, and we saw that with Rocco. And you don't expect those two, when you watch those 2 guys line up with each other, that Rocco would actually be able to out-duel him down the stretch, but he does. And over the course of 13, 14, 15, Rocco makes 3 straight birdies, and that changes the game. I mean, incredible that Rocco could go do that against Tiger in that position, while Tiger's just kind of, parring along and playing pretty well, but just not making a lot of longer putts like he has for that throughout the tournament. And all of a sudden, I don't know how, Mike, but Rocco's got a 1-stroke lead on 15. It went from down 3 to up 1 in 6 holes.
Yeah, and Ben, you did a great job just outlining this sequence here, because you felt like it was over after the 10th hole. And like you said, now we're through 15 and Rocco's up 1. And this is the stretch that I didn't remember. I didn't remember that it actually played out like this, but I'm like, man, this is like one of the most exciting sports events I've watched since we've been doing this podcast. I mean, that's what it turned into. Like you said, benefit of not looking up anything in advance before watching it and sort of reliving it, like we say at the beginning of every episode here. And that Tiger putt on 16, man, the putt that went right to the lip there.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. I mean, and then Mediate that allows Mediate to maintain his lead up 1 through 16. He maintains his lead up 1 through 17, and now they're headed to 18.
Yeah. I mean, Tiger just missed a couple of putts that were just short, and so did Rocco. I mean, that was, I think, a lot of what they showed throughout this Monday round was Rocco had so many chances in previous rounds on shorter putts that he just didn't make. And you look at those and you kind of kick yourself for Rocco, because he had every chance. And again, he's in the same situation he was in on Sunday. You just need 1 birdie down the stretch. If you can just birdie 1 hole, even in 18's that hole typically for you, then you're going to win this tournament. And you mentioned it. They got 18. They both go in the fairway, but Tiger's got his length. He is got a chance to reach the green in 2, hole which he's eagled already in this tournament. And I thought Johnny Miller did a really good job. I think it was Johnny Miller. Really good job explaining it, because Rocco laid up. And so they basically said, yeah, Tiger comes into this hole right now. He's walking up the fairway on 18. He says Tiger's taken 68 strokes at this point. Rocco's taken 67. But the good news is they're both going to get to the green in the same amount of strokes. And that's what matters. So it'd come down to putting. I thought it was a great kind of perspective to look at this entire round that way. But that's what it did. So Rocco lays up. He's got a short wedge in, like 123. Tiger pulls out. Then they go back and forth with Caddy Steve on the wind, where they should hit the shot. I mean, they go back and forth here in that discussion. Tiger pulls out a 4-iron, rips it to 210 or 215, and drops it on the green. And he barely cleared the water, by the way. It's a lot closer than I thought. So he's got an eagle putt. And then Rocco, he's got to come in. He's got a wedge, 123. This is Rocco's shot. I mean, most pros' shots. And Rocco, I mean, it was not a bad shot, but he leaves it like 20 feet away. So then you're down to a putting contest. Yeah,
we're down to a putting contest. And we talked before about Rocco having chances to win this thing. And this is like the most glaring one. He has a putt to win it on 18. And I thought what took away from the moment a little bit, Ben, you could tell me, is that putt on 18 that he had to win it wasn't even close.
Yeah, and that was a little disappointing. And after the round, he did say, I was probably a bit nervy there. And, I mean, how could you not be? But, yeah, I mean, Tiger runs he's like a 60 or 70-foot eagle putt. Runs it by, 4 or 5 feet. Like, doesn't have a give me coming back. And then Rocco, I mean, they weren't on the same line, but Rocco had a pretty good idea of what that ball's going to do, and did leave it about three balls outside of the hole. And it wasn't one of those where you're on the edge of your seat until it passed the cup. It was like you saw early on that it wasn't on track. And I agree, that was kind of disappointing, but it kind of set up these 2 comeback putts that were a little shaky, but they both make them. And again, here you are, Tiger birdies 18th again to even it up with Rocco, and they go to extra holes. But I mean, just a dramatic finish, and you still cannot believe that Rocco was there and had that putt again to win it after all that.
Yeah, after everything he's been through, I mean, that putt, he must, that's one I bet you he thinks about, even if he's over losing this, this tournament now. I mean, because he had literally had a chance to win, and it wasn't even close, Yeah. So then, I mean, like Ben mentioned, we're even here through 18, and we go to our first playoff hole. And Mike,
you've given Tiger too many chances at this point. It's
Exactly.
only a matter of time before
Rocco
hits one, and you know it. Like, you're just waiting for it, and it happens here on this first playoff hole, which is hole 7, which Tiger, I think, birdied earlier in the round. Rocco goes left into the bunker. Tiger's in the fairway. Rocco pulls one in his second shot. He has a tough approach. Tiger, just hits a nice, easy shot on the green. He's got basically a 2-putt to win it, because Rocco's chip up from that after that approach shot goes 15, 20 feet by the hole, so he's got a tough comebacker, and it's Tiger almost makes a putt to win it with a birdie, but doesn't. And at that point, it's pretty much over. And it's kind of disappointing it kind of finished that way after everything else we saw. But I think he knew it was just a matter of time, and Rocco probably did too, that I can't sustain this. Even though Tiger's playing on a broken leg, essentially, I can't sustain this for much longer. Something's going to give, and it finally did on this hole. And it was disappointing to see. But Rocco, I mean, to his point, he answered the questions after the round, had another great interview about what it meant just to be in that position and how much confidence it gives him in his game. But I thought what was just more interesting on watching this now, Mike, is after it's over in the celebration, they get back on the golf carts, and then Elan's there in the golf cart riding back to him, and then they're on the green, and then once they get there, his young daughter, who's only not even just about to turn a year old, Sam, is there with him. Gorgeous little baby too, by the way, so cute. And you kind of see all this, and you're just like, man, it's like cringing, like, oh my, I know it's about to happen here in like 15 or 16 months.
I know. That's the first thing I thought of, man. He has like a happy young family there at the end, embracing him after winning the tournament. And I immediately Googled like Tiger Woods Thanksgiving incident. You know what I mean? Because like, what year did that happen? And like Ben mentioned, it'd be the following November where everything would change for Tiger Woods. So this probably one of the last great moments for Tiger Woods on the golf course until very recently when he won the Masters. So an important tournament in the legacy of Tiger from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, it was just, you watch that and it like you said, it looked like the perfect family, and then you just kind of know now everything that was going on behind the scenes and everything else going on in Tiger's life. But this was kind of, I mean, in retrospect, Tiger's peak. He crescendoed here in this moment, and it's tough looking back now because I knew, but you kind of forget this was Tiger's last major championship until he won the Masters in 2019. 11 years, and they showed the graphic after this tournament was over. They showed the graphic on NBC outlining major by major, Tiger versus Jack, the age they were and what major it was. And you see Tiger's only 4 away. He's three years ahead of Jack's pace in terms of age, but it would all come crashing down the next year. And Tiger really would never be the same again between his injuries, between the incident with his wife, and all the scandal off the course. Everything changed from there. So watching this now makes you just kind of appreciate the good times. I mean, essentially, right? This was the good times as a Tiger fan watching this. It's never going to be like that again, and it never was.
Yeah, you know what? Back then, put yourself back, 12, 13 years ago, Ben. Once he wins this tournament, you're like, man, there's no way he's not going to surpass Jack.
Yeah.
That was the overall sentiment because, like you said, he had won like 5 majors in the 3 years preceding this.
He won 12 majors in the decade alone in the 2000s.
Exactly. So you think it's like a no-brainer, but then, like you said, it just proves you never know. The combination of injuries, knee, back, and then obviously the family issues that he went through, just totally, I don't know, just it changed golf and it changed the sports world in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think we just didn't know how serious the injury was, number one. So we didn't know what he was going to go through. I can't remember, but I don't think anybody expected, Tiger to be out the rest of the year with that injury, knowing, ahead of time that it was that serious, but that's what would happen. And then, everything else after that. So that sucks in retrospect, but Rocco as well. I mean, 45, is kind of a one, you expect it to kind of be a one-time thing, right? In terms of that. Well, from that point forward, Rocco only played 7 more majors in his career. He played the next 4 after this one, but then since that point, he played 1 in 2010. He missed the cut. 1 in 2011, he withdrew, and then another in 2016, his final major. He missed the cut there as well. So this was it for Rocco, his best finish ever. And I'm glad that Tiger won to get that last major, but it wouldn't have been the worst thing if Rocco won. That would have been a hell of a story, but it would have been a worse way for Tiger to go out, no question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's kind of like, hey, pick your poison. They're both, they both would have been great moments if they won. But from what happened with Tiger Woods, now with the advantage of hindsight, yeah, I hear you. Good take there. And hey, is Rocco still involved in golf? Does he do any commentating or anything? I think he'd be a natural fit for that.
Yeah, I think he's done some stuff with the Golf Channel. I don't know if he still does it or what, but he does play some on the Champions Tour, the Senior Tour.
Okay.
I've actually seen him play. I saw him play in Birmingham at the Regions not too long ago. It's like one of the senior majors. He played there. It was fun kind of watching him. He's the same kind of laid back dude on the course.
Still a crowd favorite.
Yeah, he's still. I mean, not as much, but
yeah.
I mean, I think when people see that name, he's a guy people think seek out just to watch him play a little bit after this tournament. It definitely changed his legacy. He didn't win anything, but I think he's much more of a household name now than he ever would have been had he not finished like that.
Gotcha. So I have two general golf takes, watching golf event takes for you that I want your opinion on.
All right.
First of all, how funny is it when someone's on, and Mediate did this during this tournament, when they're on a bunker down a hill a little bit, so a lower part of the bunker, and they hit the shot, and when they hit a good shot, they run up the bunker. I think that's hilarious, especially watching Rocco do that. I don't know if you caught that at all, but I think in general in golf, watching these guys do that is hilarious.
Okay.
That's number one. And number two is, what is your opinion on get in the hole guy?
Well, he's shifted over the years to, Baba Booey and everything else.
Now that's funny. Now that's funny. But when Tiger Woods is 220 feet out in the fairway, 220 yards out in the fairway, and he hit it, and you hear someone say, "Get in the hole," you just sound like an idiot. And it's not like you're going to be able to say "Hey man, I was the guy who told Tiger to get it in the hole on 16 there." You can't see the guy. Those guys who cheer after the shot's taken, clapping, I get.
Yeah.
Or when the ball lands and it lands close to the hole, going ooh, or clapping, then I understand. But the guys who yell right when the shot's taken, the worst.
I guess it's it's become part of golf that I don't really think much about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of dumb. I wouldn't do it. But
It's just part of the game. Think if you were there with someone who was doing that, you'd be like, bro, chill out a little bit.
Yeah. Would you be hanging out with getting the whole guy at the golf tournament, you think?
I would not. And but I know the U.S. Open crowds are known to be a little bit more rowdy, right? Is that true or not?
A lot of it depends on location too. Yeah, different parts of the country, fans are a little bit different. When they play in New York, right, at Bethpage, obviously they go in there expecting it to be a little bit rowdier.
That's stereotyping a little bit, but I get it.
It's accurate.
I get it. I mean, I get it, but I was just screaming at my TV yesterday during Mets Cubs on June 14th.
There you go.
I get it.
Well, they're going to play at Torrey Pines again for the second time for a major, the U.S. Open this week. Unfortunately, Tiger's not going to be in it. Tiger had the car accident earlier this year, which took him out of this entire year. Who knows what the future holds for Tiger. We may never see him play a major again. Who knows? But it would have been great to see him in this event. I would have given him a chance to win it, too, with the way he was playing over the last couple of years in this venue. But he opens the door for somebody else to be there. And I don't think it'll be Rocco. But maybe, who knows, it'll be another story of a guy that's off the radar, could come through and win it. But this was a very...
Well, hey, Ben, you just opened the door. Speaking of open the door, we need a pick now.
Pick. Well, I mean, listen, my pick, I think I did it on one of these other shows I do. I think I made it. Xander Schauffele was my pick. I don't know if you know who that guy is, but I think John
Xander Schauffele is. I do.
John Rahm's got a great chance to win it. He's the favorite though, so you can't pick him. But I think he is playing great. He has won here before, so it all kind of makes up. He was playing great before that COVID incident a couple weeks ago. But I think Xander Schauffele is the guy that I think is on the verge of winning one, and he's playing pretty well right now. So it kind of fits. He's the guy I'm going to roll with.
There you go.
You got to pick, Mike?
I don't have a pick now. For those of you who don't know, Ben knows golf. So, this is coming from a legitimate source here.
We'll see how it plays out this weekend. Well, this is a lot of fun. And, again, this is one of the great golf rounds of all time. And I would say, hey, if you have some time, want to kind of skim through this and watch it, at least watch maybe the back nine. I think this entire round is really interesting to watch, and it was so much better than I expected going back to it. And I'm glad we did, because this playoff round was a classic. And now looking back, I mean, this was one of Tiger's final great rounds. Makes it even more special.
Yeah, Ben, there's sometimes where we pick episodes that absolutely hit in terms of my interest level and how awesome it was. And you hit this one out of the park, my man.
Perfect.
Great episode pick. Great event pick. And just a classic.
Well, if you haven't subscribed to the show, please do. We do games every single week. We also do true crime. We do documentaries. So plenty of stuff on the radar. You don't want to miss a single episode, and the best way to follow along is by subscribing or following us on whatever podcasting app or on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. And then we're going to put this event up on distantreplaypodcast.com. So if you're looking for it, easiest place to go find that is on our website, plus all the other games we've done. We put them all there, so they're easy to find. All the classics, so you can scroll through and find an event that maybe you'd forgotten about that we've done a show on, and you can go back and watch that on your own. So we do appreciate all the support.
Over 100 episodes for you guys to binge anytime you want. Please rate, subscribe, and like. It helps us a lot. And until next time.